Hey, hot food, what's up? It's the Collage Detective here investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm making my second review of the day. But this is going to be a long one, okay? Sit tight. So, today I'm going to be doing an album review on the latest Matmos album, The Consuming Flame Open Exercises in Group Form. So, Matmos is an electronic duo, and they are, in my opinion, one of the most important electronic acts of all times, actually, because they actually have been making music since I think the 90s, and they have been consistently dropping one really strange, creative, but interesting electronic album to another. We have albums where they sample surgery, we have albums where they sample the nature, we have albums where they sample nothing. And I have reviewed one of their albums in the past, and that is Plastic Anniversary from, I think, last year. And Plastic Anniversary is a fantastic album. It is one of my favorite electronic albums of the decade. And this album is where they sample only plastic and they make all sorts of songs, and it's just impressive. And even before that, in the year 2016, they released Ultimate Care, which is an album where they only sample washing machines. And I don't know why, but I these washing machine sounds, they really make your head bang. And now they have returned with this album, and this album is 3 discs long. It's 3 hours long. There are so many tracks on this album, and apparently they also bring on 99 artists for this album, and the sounds are extremely diverse. They really jump all the way from glitchy Plunderphonics to IDM to ambient techno to just noise to just experimental glitchy sounds to music concrete, tape music, sound collage, just all over the place. If it's a kind of electronic music, you name it, it's gonna show up here. So yeah, I don't want to go over every single track, but I'll go over the ones that I love the most. The first disc of the album is called A Donut in the Sky, and it opens off with a cold open, which is just okay. It sounds pretty aimless. It has all sorts of scratchy, tappy noise. It has a drone, and it's all right. And it's the second track where the momentum actually starts to build. We have Voxelman and Moteswarm. And on multiple tracks on this album, Matmos actually goes along with this very simple, consistent 8/8 beat, but every time they would add something different on each track, and that goes for Moteswarm, where we get these very metallic, sort of off-kiltered, plinky, plunky beats that are very intricate. Also, we get these analog synths and talkbox vocals, I guess, and also these nimble keyboards, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they do sound interesting. The track Adam's Apple, as well as Garden of Tall Boys, is where they bring on some guitarists and rock musicians onto the track, and it's very strange. It's more experimental. It has these smoky background noise, and it sounds really interesting, and I have to admit that. And we also have the track Athens, New Guinea, Gas Can, Japan, which is this combination of tape music, tribal drums, very clear modern drums towards the end, but in the beginning, very tribal and strange. It's almost like I'm going through time. And the track Thyrsus has these blissful vocals just being chopped up to a point where it's like I'm in this weird space that brings me to the past. The highlight of the album is Circle of Swords, featuring none other than experimental hip-hop trio Clipping, which consists of David Digg, and we have David Diggs providing vocals on this track, and his vocals is just so chopped up. It's so just chopped to minimum pieces, like a millisecond of his voice just blurts out, and it just plays itself like it's a drum of its own, and it sounds really interesting. And then in the second half of the track, we get this very strange group chanting Irish spoken word thing, and we get this very simple drum beat in the background just going along, and it's a very interesting collage of sounds. The track No Concept has these shuffling hi-hats, lonely keyboards. Well, it starts off like that, and then it sort of changes into something more harsh and straightforward. The lonely keyboards, they're on the track Virgin, unspotted, by the way. And it smoothly transitions into In the Shape of Beasts, which has these pounding gongs and scratchy plastic noise, which is interesting. There are multiple moments on this album that actually sound kind of scary and disturbing. And then there are moments on the album which is more comedic, fun, satirical. And then the album or the disc actually ends off with, I think, 4 tracks that's just kind of aimless and directionless. Not a huge fan. We get this cocktail party jazz sample, which is a little weird, and then these text-to-speech vocals on I'm Fine, which is, I don't know what's going on. It's really strange, it's really weird, but I have to admit, I gotta appreciate how ambitious Matmos is when it comes to trying out everything. So anyways, we move over to disc 2. We have Adepts and Maybeism with the very Southeast Asian flavored plucky strings, as well as I'm not sure which language it is, but Southeast Asian language sort of being sampled and chopped up on the former track Adepts. And in Maybeism, we get these chopped up text-to-speech vocals, which sort of turns into that very consistent beat that I talked about, and it sounds very interesting. It's also not as messy, but it's still very consistent and clear. And we also have the track Dancing Your Animal, which is a glitchy jazz infused electronic track, which isn't very consistent and catchy at all. It's very avant-garde and all over the place, but it has some interesting sounds. And then we have Nice Men in Stable Relationships, which is hands down my favorite track on the entire album, where we get these very clear, crisp, very upfront drum beats, and we get all these nice vocal samples. They actually sampled Michael Rosen with a noise. And then we get these female vocals, nice men in stable relationships, and it's sort of a cappella, and it's sort of like that, and it sort of builds on top of one another. It gets more and more layered, and the drums still remain, and it sounds fantastic. And then once in a while, we will get a wave of very clear synths, and then the female vocals would sort of fade into the track once again, except this time more chopped up. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. The next track is Let Us In, which has these very smooth but noisy industrial beats, which is really nice. And then we get a couple of tracks that are just very tame, very patience testing. There's a track called Io, Lavendar River Carez featuring Yo La Tengo, which is just a bed of synths, very ambient, very directionless. Afterwards, we have The Void at the Center, which is actually a track that I like a lot. The beat is very bouncy, it's very strange and curious, and the building of sounds, the layering of sounds is just really, really interesting. The next track, I Know What I Saw, is another really disturbing track. We get these slow snap beats in the back, but then we get these very freaky, just monstrous sounds, horn drones that are very scary, skittery tones, it sort of crawls under your skin. And it's almost like the title refers to some person seeing something really, really crazy and then telling this crazy incident to another person, and that other person didn't believe in the original person, and the original person says, I know what I saw. Anyways, the next couple of tracks, Sarabande and The Dead City of Telphar, has this strange parallel universe sci-fi quality to it. The former has these Latin flavored drums and Latin flavored guitars that are smothered with sunburnt synths, and the latter has this mystical synth passage, which is really nice, even though it's a little monotone, but still. We have the track Platformalism, which samples the Netflix logo sound, the Kevin Spacey double table slam at the end of season 2 of House of Cards, and then these pitch shifted vocals and all that stuff, and then we get these very clowny satirical keyboards, which sort of makes fun of, I guess, app culture, digital culture. And we also have Ver Miniatures, which is a pretty strange track where we get these noisy, grainy, crackling sounds. And the album or the disc ends off with I'm on the Team, which features a bunch of people, and it's this really fun and energetic, noisy, glitchy, strange track that's very concentrated and fun. These warped tones combined with these clanks and taps are really interesting. It sounds like they're sampling wooden chopsticks just banging against one another at a few points, and it's really, really fun. We have the third disc of the album. The second disc is called On the Team, and the third disc is called Extraterrestrial Masters, and we have the first 4 tracks, which are not really all that impressive in and of themselves. However, they do provide something really cinematic. As an opening to the third track, it sounds like we're slowly gliding over a ruined post-apocalyptic city. And the third track on disc 3, Guitars, Good Night, Loving Bows Icard. We get these very lively guitars for some reason, and then on the next track, Tworivers Run, it sounds like nothing again, which is a little confusing. And then afterwards we have Boomchicka, which is 13 minutes long of grungy, folky guitars, distorted harmonicas, and sort of digitally manipulated vocal harmonies, and it sounds fantastic. It's a great change of pace. It cleanses your palate, and it sounds really interesting. The next track, Extraterrestrial, is wow. What the heck is going on? It just sounds like we're being ascended to another level. It sounds like we're in space in the far future. It's really crazy. We get these layers of cascading, cycling, high-pitched synths, and it sort of races and ascends to heaven at a few points because it's so far ahead. It feels very digital. It feels very digital is the right word, I guess. And also these droning vocal harmonies later that just comes up. It's all very cinematic and amazing. The track Circle of Shivers almost calls back to Circle of Swords with the very tribal drums, and then we get these indigenous instruments and these, I believe, flutes, or at least some sort of woodwind instrument that just comes together in a very strange way, and it's fantastic. And on the next few tracks we get these strange chopped up vocal pieces, and it's also really strange. Even though these vocal pieces are really simplistic, the way they're chopped up and the fact that they're short makes it interesting. And then we have a couple of tracks which features Oneohtrix Point Never, we have Out of the Serpent's Mouth, and Warm Opening. And the former is a very disturbing track, and the latter is a lot of fun. The former track has these howling horns, which are really unstable and freaky and drony, and the latter has a warm tone to it, which lives up to its title. The track It's Not Necessarily the Case is one of my favorites as well, because, again, it has this consistent beat, but it has a jazzy flavor to it, which is just very strange, very freaky and fun. Again, the very off-kiltered, blurting horns, they come back, and it sounds very unstable. And after the penultimate track, which is not really all that great, we have the final track, which starts off with these noisy, bleepy, bloopy sounds, and then a warm and quiet and very stable ending where all the sounds, they quiet down, they start to be more consistent, and it's almost like all the chaos has finally gained stability. So yeah, overall 3 very, very interesting discs, amazing collages of sounds, even though a good part of this album here and there also aren't that memorable, in that some of them are just really slow, really quiet, some of them are just weird and confusing, but still a lot of really interesting moments. The sound play is definitely fantastic and masterful, and it's very ambitious and bold, and I love it. So my favorite track here is Nice Men and Stable Relationships, and my least favorite is probably I don't know, the track before the Yola Tango track, I guess. So yeah, I am giving Matmos the Consuming Flame Open Exercises in Group Form a light 8 out of 10. So, have you listened to this Matmos record from 1 to 10? How much did you rate it? Like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. I will be reviewing Black Bear, Katy Perry, Radiohead album tomorrow. And, yeah.